I like the way we speak things into existence, how we can manifest what's going to happen in the future. And what I mean by that is, how many times have we talked about John Gruden announcing the Bucs schedule? In fact, we did Gruden announcing the Bucs schedule the last couple of years, I believe. Literally every year, yeah.
And probably tonight again.
And it's coming. But yeah, this time the Buccaneers in their Winston went and got Gruden, who of course has been opening boxes now for the last 6 months for Barstool Sports, which is still one of the greatest marketing ideas anybody ever had. And they dropped off, on the eve of the schedule release, they dropped off a big 50th anniversary box, which you knew had some clues as to who they were playing and when. And sure enough, it was a little it went a little too long. It was kind of like one of those Jameis Winston speeches, where Fitz goes, "Yeah, I liked your speech. It's a little too long."
Well, it's obvious they didn't script it for him because he couldn't follow a script anyway if you did. They just basically gave him talking points
and props.
He can't go short.
No.
He's not gonna. No story's gonna be short. No nothing. It's gonna be long and drawn out because that's what John does.
That's right. They gave him props and maybe a list of games. I'm not really sure, but he started pulling out things that were kind of funny. It's just as only John can do. See this ball. This is Rondé Barber's interception, man. We went up there and closed the vet. We closed the vet, man. And he starts reliving, 2002 all over again.
Oh, there's lots of 2002 reliving.
Oh yeah, tons of it. Yeah. 49ers, man. I remember we beat those guys on the way to the Super Bowl that year in 2002. We beat the 49ers.
Run by John Lynch, but
yeah.
Love you, but
that's right. Yeah, gotta go with my Bucks. But so it was a good idea. I mean, like I saw some of the other social medias were cute too, but I thought that one was pretty good. Did you see the one?
I believe the Colts pulled theirs down after an hour.
Did they? What was it? Not real well received, or?
Well, they did a Minecraft thing, but the first one was Tyreek Hill being arrested by the Coast Guard in the ocean.
Ooh,
I think that's why they pulled it.
Little salty there. Yeah, that's funny and not really. Did you see the one? Who was it? Let me get the team right. The Buffalo Bills, because nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, use AI. It's whatever.
We should use AI. You should just Josh Allen shooting hoops. Just use AI. And so the GM, literally calls Allen Iverson. It was great, man. It was so great. They should have worked in what are we talking about? The schedule, man. What are we talking about? Yeah. The schedule? They should have gotten some of that in there.
They should have done it with the preseason. Here's the preseason. We're talking about practice.
What are we talking about? We're talking about preseason, man. What are we talking about? Practice?
Which that was a nice change for the NFL this year, announcing the preseason at the same time. Normally that comes like a week later, 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
They announced all the games at the same time now.
Yeah, we didn't have times of the kickoffs and things like that, but it is what it is. The preseason is interesting because while the league has to obviously be made aware of it and improve it and all that stuff, and I don't know what guidance, if any, they have, but it's basically the contracts between teams. Everybody needs to play 3 games, but it's still I think teams seek out each other in some respects, and usually see some AFC teams against NFC teams like you're going to see.
Typically, it's the teams closest to you that you don't play.
Yeah, geographically, right. And that's why Jacksonville and Miami have constantly been sort of the off-season companions of the Bucs. I think this year they go to Pittsburgh, and then I want to say that they have a couple games and/or practices here against Tennessee and maybe somebody else. But
Tennessee and the Bills.
The Bills, is that it? Yeah.
So maybe AI will be here.
Maybe AI will be here. Josh
Allen.
Said
go Josh Allen. He wouldn't say go Bills, but he said go Josh Allen.
So you just tell him, give me a go Bills. Come on, give me a go. Go Josh Allen. So that one was good. But yeah, they did what they could, and then my boy Gru performed as only he can. So let's talk about this schedule because there's a little bit of misinformation out there buzzing around.
A little bit.
I thought I was going to be somewhere on Thanksgiving other than my own home, but it turns out they were wrong about that.
Well, that's what happens when non-reporters try to report.
Now, come on. Come on now. All that was said was that somebody, a good source, told them.
That's what reporting is using your sources to disseminate information, correct?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So because you said you have a source, it means you're off the hook?
No, because it's your reputation. See what happens. What happens these days, in particular, with social media, is that there's the lines have completely blurred. Right? Nobody cares who you are
Mhm.
or who you work for.
Mhm.
If you said it, it's going up, and it's going to have your name attached to it. And if you work for somebody that's a legit media entity out there in the world, then they're gonna pin that on you too. So yeah, you can't just make statements and think they're benign statements. Everything counts, right? Everything is sort of your reporting, if you will. And you just shouldn't throw stuff out there on the wall to see if it sticks. I heard a lot of different things. I read a lot of different things about the Bucks. Everybody was sure they were going to play on Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
At first, it was at Detroit, which made sense to me because they played Detroit again. And then it was the Rams. Rumor came about, um, and it turns out neither one is true. In fact, the Bucks, I think, are fortunate if you follow them or if you cover them. Certainly, that they have no games on holidays this year, which is terrific.
Mhm.
So we don't have to worry about that. No international games.
Yep.
Overall, like just
Some other misinformation, because
yeah.
I kept hearing for weeks, and we've
Hmm.
discussed this. Oh, the NFL would never schedule a home game when the Rays are at home across the street.
Yeah, I think they got one.
The NFL doesn't care.
Yeah,
They're going to schedule what they want to schedule, and they don't. The rest of you can figure it all out. That's their attitude.
yeah. No, they're king, man. They are the king. They are the king. And I didn't think, even if they were inclined to give a crap, which they don't, but there's still, remember, there's only 10,000 fans over there. I mean, I was telling you this before we came on. Like I was running a little bit late to the Detroit game last year, which was like the second game of the season, I believe. And they had that epic playoff game the year before, so this was a big deal. Bucks going into Detroit. Oh, by the way, they won. But the same day, and I'm trying to muscle my way into Ford Field, and there's this giant line outside, and I'm never going to get in there. And part of the problem was you couldn't get downtown because the Tigers were playing at that very moment. Like they were playing right next door, at the new Tiger Stadium or whatever, and the place was packed. And it was hard to move around and stuff. But yeah, the NFL didn't care. They had a huge game between
Yep.
Tampa Bay and Detroit, rematch of the divisional playoff game that Detroit won the year before, and no one cared. Everybody showed up to the football game.
Mm-hmm.
Place was loud and rocking and everything else. So, um, yeah, it was. I thought that was interesting because that's a big ballpark and that's a major league city, and those two are right across the street from each other. So they were tapping some of the law enforcement and stuff that was needed there to kind of organize crowds and whatnot. But they got it done. They got it done. It wasn't a problem. So yeah, I don't. I guess they were, again, wrong about that. And sometimes that's all you can do is just say, "Well, I screwed that one up and get better next time." As far as the schedule goes, I always look at a couple things first, right? One is how many primetime games, because you know the one thing football players love, and I think people love in general, is routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the routine of playing on every Sunday afternoon, um, your biorhythms, your sleep patterns, your rest and recovery, like everything sort of falls into place, right? There's no abnormal hours or days or shortened weeks. That's really, Sunday 1 o'clock, man. If you could do them all on Sunday 1 o'clock, and believe me, I've had many seasons like that when the Bucks were really bad, they couldn't sniff being on national TV. In fact, there's 3 teams this year that don't have any games on national TV, including the Browns. So, but you'd love to have it 1 o'clock every week, and then the bye week right in the middle. That's not the case. But the fact that they do have 4 national TV games sounds about right. They've won the division 4 years in a row, and we'll get to some of those. But the biggest thing you look at is, okay, who are you starting with? Well, They're starting
Well,
against Atlanta.
Let's go back to the prime time.
Yeah.
Because 3 of those 4 are on the road.
That's true. The only one that's at home is against week 3, I think it is.
No, the Falcons and the Thursday night game.
Falcons
week 15.
Thursday night game here.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. Yeah.
Now, they do luck out that week 2 and week 7 when they have Monday Night Football. They're at the Texans, at the Lions.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 weeks ESPN or ABC ESPN is
The
getting 2
doubleheaders?
games. They're doing 7 and 10. So they have the early 7 o'clock, not an 8:15 kick.
Yeah,
So,
so that'll get them home a little bit earlier. Yeah.
It does, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, 3 primetime games on the road, only 1 at home.
One in LA
coming
on
back
a Sunday
from LA.
night. That's tough.
They're going to get back really late.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah, I estimate somewhere between 5 and 6 a.m. the next day on Monday.
Yeah, probably.
By the time you get out of there and get your charter and of course SoFi is literally right off the runway at LAX, but still, it's going to be a long flight and a very short week. Coming out of that.
I wonder if there are any NFL teams, because you're seeing this more in. I know in hockey it is. I'm not sure if the NBA does. But where you have a game, whatever night, and the NHL could be any night of the week, Wednesday night, and instead of flying home after the game, because you're going to get home 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning,
let them sleep and come home the next day.
They actually stay the night and then come back the next day at a reasonable time.
Yeah.
I don't know if any NFL teams have started doing that, but I wonder if they
don't hockey teams do that every now and then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The Lightning will do that periodically. I mean, depends on the game schedule and everything else, but there's a lot of times they'll stay the night and then fly out the next day, 9, 10, or, leave the hotel 9, 10 in the morning. And then
I'd much rather do that.
A normal sleep pattern.
You kill your sleep patterns if and people are like, well, you sleep on the plane. No, you really can't. Like you might doze off for a few minutes, but you're uncomfortable. And when you land, you've lost the night. And so now you're sleeping or trying to catch up on your rest during the day, and half the day is gone. It's just really, you never really get it back. Like it's just really difficult to get back into those patterns. So that's going to be a tough one. That's a really tough turnaround overall. I didn't think that the national TV games are that bad, albeit you said just one here on Thursday night against Atlanta, but to start the season, and this hasn't always happened, they got 2 road games, boom boom, and going to Atlanta. I think Atlanta's the other best team in the NFC South. That's to me their chief rival, if you will. People are big on Carolina. I'm not as big on Carolina. I think they'll be better, and the Bucs certainly play some close games against them, but I don't see them winning the division. Atlanta, I could, and the only thing about it is that you're going to be about as healthy as you could be, but then so will they, right? And yet it will really only be the 3rd start maybe for Michael Penix Jr. And, they won't quite be in sync. Now, you've got a new offensive coordinator in Josh Grizzard, but there is some carryover from the offense, but he has not called a play, not one play. And they lost to Atlanta twice last year in horrific fashion, to Kirk Cousins, no less. So, it's a tough opener. It's a division game.
Yep.
It counts twice. Like all of that still matters, and yet you can't lose to Atlanta every year and expect to win the division. They lost to them twice last season.
You can't, but if you do lay an egg in the first game, or
there's plenty of time. Yeah,
there's plenty of time. But you've lost a road game, not the home game again.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. And if you win it, you can really have some house money on them for the rest of the year too, because you got to play them in Tampa Bay. So that would be helpful as well. The next week they're back on the road again, and this hasn't happened since 2022 when remember the Bucs began the season. I think at Dallas and then at New Orleans. That was with Tom Brady. They wound up being 2-0 after those 2 games. But going to Houston, Monday Night Football. Obviously CJ Stroud is a force down there. They're a good team, especially at home. It'll be a tough game. The last time they played them, they had that epic collapse, in the last 40-something seconds. Baker Mayfield had taken them down and scored the go-ahead touchdown, and then, Stroud brought him back as a rookie, and all hell broke loose in the last few seconds. They couldn't cover anybody. So this is a good football team. It'll be a tough test. So starting on the road, bang, bang like that, you want to at least try to split those games, and if you can win 2, God bless you. And then they got the home opener in week 3 against the Jets. And then we don't know who, I guess we kind of know who the quarterback is, but we don't know how good the Jets are going to be. I wouldn't think that good. They play the AFC East this year, so that's the first of many games they're going to be playing against the AFC East. And then the next week, boom, Super Bowl champions come to Raymond James. And this seems to be an annual occurrence. It's a 1 p.m. game. It's not one of the primetime games, but it's the fifth time since 2022 that the Bucs will host the Eagles, and that includes that NFC wildcard game that the Bucs won 32-9 in January 2024. And as a matter of fact, the Eagles have been down here now 3 consecutive Septembers. It's incredible. So a lot of Philly fans be headed down this way.
Yeah, the other part too, and you mentioned it's a 1:00 game. Every home game, except for the Thursday night game, and the final game is a TBA. It could be Saturday, it could be Sunday, but they're all 1:00 games. There's no 4:00 starts at home.
And you know that the Bucs asked for them. You know that they want later starts to take some of the heat off the fans, and for that matter, the players as well. Yep. I love it because I, get home earlier and we can do this podcast. But at the end of the day, I think it's really difficult to sit out there and roast as a fan base, and you can roast all the way to December.
Now they only have 3 home games before November.
That's true.
So they don't have, the schedule is front loaded with road games.
It is
5 of your first 8 are on the road before the bye.
It is. Yep, 5 of the first 8, and then you got the bye week, which I've always said that the NFL says they want competitive balance and scheduling and draft and this and that and the other. Yeah, well, they pick winners. And fortunately for the Bucs, the NFL likes the Bucs. They like the Bucs. They think they're relevant. They think they can make the playoffs again. They made it 5 years in a row because they placed their bye week at week 9. You can't get much better than that in a 17-game season. So, hats off to them. And and then look, you got some long games. You got game in Los Angeles against the Rams. You got a game in Seattle.
I was going to say, that's your next game after the Eagles is at Seattle.
Yeah, and that's a hike, and that is an absolute hike. You're talking about 6-7 hours, to kind of get out there. It's tough. It really is. So, so it look, I think this schedule I've seen worse. The back end of it once again looks better than some parts of it. I mean, I think they
5 of the last 6 games are your conference games.
They're conference games.
Your division. Your division games.
Division games, right?
Or I'm sorry, 4 of your last 5.
NFC South, yeah, including 2 against Carolina in the final 3 weeks or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, but you got a game at Miami. Like after they get back from really Seattle or LA, they don't really travel long distance after that. Yep. Because you're going to Carolina. You got a game in Miami against the Dolphins. There's some easy trips and some home games. So again, they can make some hay in November and December if they need to.
And really no cold weather games.
No cold weather. Yeah, that was another break.
Buffalo mid-November. You got a chance at some cold.
But that could have been worse.
It's not going to be frigid.
Yeah,
it could be cold. You could even see some snow, but not 0 degrees.
It's not December, man. That's not late November, December. So you dodged a bullet there. Yeah, look, you got to play who's on your schedule, and when you win divisions, you play a lot of first place teams. That's why you're playing so many of these teams that like Detroit and others. San Francisco comes here again. It's another year where the 49ers are coming, and I don't know how good they're going to be. They got to get healthy, and Brock Purdy still has a contract issue. We don't know if Christian McCaffrey can play at all, and he's going to be a new dad and all that. So John Lynch's group has issues. They're kind of in a transition right now. They're trying to hang on and still be relevant, and yet they probably got to solve some salary cap issues and get younger at the same time. So yeah, it's to me, I like the way it's set up. Like if you're a Bucs fan, there's just enough national TV games, but not so many that your team is going to get out of whack. The fact that you don't play on Thanksgiving, I think, is an advantage because I think it's tough for all those teams to go into Dallas or Detroit or LA or whoever. So those of you that thought they were going to play the Rams, on Thanksgiving, again, not true, but they are going out there. So It'll be a late night, early morning for them to get back into town and all of that.
If the Bucks can hold their own early, and the schedule's not that daunting, but
But you got two on the road to start.
Two on the road to start, but 7 of the first 11 are on the road.
That's right.
So by the time you get to 11 games, now you're more than halfway
4,
through the season.
6-5, 7-4.
If you can get through that stretch and be top of the division or
near
a game behind,
then
4 of your last 6 are at home.
Right.
And it's against the Cardinals, decent team. The Saints, you should beat them.
Yep.
The Falcons, now you get them at home on a short week. That's on a short week at home. It's harder for them. Yep. At Carolina, at Miami, Carolina at home. Those last 6 games should be very successful. You just need to stay close to the division the first 11 games. And the schedule, they're capable of that, no question.
Yeah. I think the key will be a good start, and they've had good starts, but playing back-to-back road games is kind of you want to at least go 1-1. You just you don't want to go 0-2. It's tough to dig because what happens is when you lose those games, no matter what it is, everybody's waiting for that first win to exhale. Like, when are you going to get that first win? The sooner you get it, the better it is. Then everything's possible, and you're off the schneid. When you start losing and it's 1 loss in a row and it's 2 losses in a row, now maybe what if we lose this week? It's 3. Then people are trotting out the stats that only this many 0-3 teams that have started 0-3 have reached the playoffs. Yada yada, and so the narrative changes and it becomes some pressure, real or implied. So now for them, they've gotten off to good starts the last 2 years, 3-1, 3-1, but then they hit the skids. Then they hit that little bit of a lull there. And that's what they need to avoid. They need to avoid those long losing streaks where you lose 5 out of 6 or 4 out of 5. That's not healthy either. So they have to be able to turn it around. And that was something we talked to Todd Bowles about going back to the owners' meeting. He just said that, they have to do a better job of, sort of starting faster. And, he feels like they know how to win, but he doesn't think that, they've done a good job of finishing the season, and they've had a drought in the middle of the year 2 years in a row. So he says we got to be better than that from a coaching standpoint. Veterans holding everyone accountable, which they do, but we've got to do a lot more of that. We got to play, not even better football in the end, but you got to have a killer instinct, and you got to try to blow people out and try to win the division instead of letting it go down to the wire the last 3 or 4 weeks. You don't need those nerve-wracking games in Carolina where Anthony Nelson has to force a fumble or they're going to just, win the game with a short field goal. You want to give yourself some cushion. And they just have kind of hit these lulls during the middle of the season where it's put them in the hole and they've had to rally to win. So I don't know if they can do that again. But in as much as we know we're going to be every weekend for the fall, assuming I travel and to all the games, and I don't know that we will, but at least you can look at it and go, okay, holidays, check, this the weekend or that weekend, bye week, check. If you want to go somewhere, it's just nice knowing where your life's going to wind up. Now, what you need this year when you go to your Bucks games is a brand new Swiss watch from Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. In fact, why don't you get one of the team watches, maybe even a Buccaneer team watch as supplies last? That's right. They are celebrating the NFL's 104th year anniversary with all 32 teams represented in these team watches. These things are gorgeous timepieces. You're talking about the color of the team in the face of the watch itself. The logos are there as well. While supplies last, as I mentioned, go to our website. You might be able to see a picture of the Bucks Chronomat watch at Breitling Boutique. They also have the Navitimers, and they got women's watches for your wife, for your girlfriend. If they're on the go like mine is, well, she's not got a torn ACL, she's riding her bike, doing stuff like that, picking up the kids. These watches are absolutely gorgeous. They have all different color wristbands for her, and they are durable. They're going to hold up through all her daily activities. It's Breitling Boutique International Plaza Mall. You'll love the customer service. They're at the center of the mall upstairs. When you go, make sure you tell them that you heard about all of it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. All right, the Rays were having a chance to go up 2-0 on the Blue Jays in this series, and Ryan Pepiot was dealing.
Your guy.
My guy, Ryan Pepiot. Yeah, we're tight like that. Pep, I call him, just for short. And so Pep's out there, and he's dealing, but he's only got a 1-0 lead. I'm going, bro, what about all those hits the night before? Could you guys save some of those maybe? But no, they did not.
Except they needed them all because they only won 11-9.
Good point. They did. But he's out there dealing, and he gets a 2-strike count. And, man,
0-2.
What a mistake pitch. 0-2. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2-strike count, 0-2. And instead of wasting one, or he caught way too much of the plate, 3-run bomb. And, the Rays weren't able to score again after scoring 1 run. And so they lose. And it was a shame because I thought Pepiot deserved a better fate. And at the end of the day, this baseball team, cannot hit with any consistency whatsoever. Yeah, Junior Caminero had a grand slam that allowed them to barely beat Toronto the night before. But the bats are just way too silent some nights, man. You just, they've got to get some players back. They really need Josh Lowe back, I think, if he's going to be Josh Lowe. And I guess, we talked about a little bit, was there an outfielder they'd have to send down? Well, I guess injuries have a way of taking care of that.
They do. Travis Jankowski felt some tightness, came out of the game, says he's felt this before, doesn't think it will be long, maybe IL, maybe not, but at this point, if it's anywhere more than a few days, with Josh Lowe in Durham right now, expected to come back this weekend, you anticipate they'll put him on the IL. And then, so that means Simpson and Meisner both would stay.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how you could have, because Simpson and Minor did not start the season, with the big club necessarily, but Meister. But here's the thing: you're going to probably have to send one down. Now you may not have to, but look at the outfielders that they're missing. These are not the guys they plan on starting the season with. Now, overall, this may help them in terms of depth, in terms of discovering something like Simpson, who can wreak havoc on the bases. Although he did get thrown out the other night, but it's just a plague on your outfield. Palacios out, Lowe's out, and now you're getting some of your backups hurt as well. So it's been a rough start, for the Rays in that aspect.
Well, and we talk about the hitting, and a few weeks into the season, we were shocked that the Rays were tops in baseball or top 5 in hitting and on base percentage.
It just didn't feel like it. Yeah.
You realize the last 30 days, there's only 2 teams behind them in batting average and on base percentage.
Yeah.
And it's the Angels and the Rockies.
The Ohtani-less Angels and the Rockies, who are just putrid and haven't won even like 8 or 9 games yet, I don't believe. But yeah, that's not good. Like, the chickens have come home to roost. You can't hide it in baseball, man. If if you get enough at bats, the game's going to tell you who you are, and it's not likely to change. But that's going to be their deal all year. We shouldn't be surprised. And
they're
got
also
some good,
last in home runs in the last 30.
Last in home runs, and they still got some good young stars. I mean, Caminero had that big grand slam the other night, and that looked nice. And he may hit 30.
But they gave up 4 home runs in that game.
But they gave up 4. Yeah, they're just inconsistent because they're not a good baseball team. I mean, they're just not a good baseball team. Sometimes it's the bullpen, sometimes it's a starter, and most times it's the fact that they get no run support. And I think that's who they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to find a way to try to win a series. If you can steal a series from Toronto and come home, you feel pretty good about things. But
they go to Miami.
Well, they go to Miami first, and then they come back. So
then they come home for 3 series.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard team to watch, man, because again, Pepiot was really dealing, and you just felt like he was walking a high wire because they weren't going to help him out. They just weren't going to help him out. You got to go out there and throw shutouts. That's a lot of pressure, but that mistake on 0-2 was a big one. Like, he caught way too much of that plate, and it was a no-doubter, And as Earl Weaver once said, it's tough to defend the 3-run homer. I mean, it really is, coming back from that. So,
yep.
We'll see if they can win the series. They got a chance still to go up there and take the series, and that would be 2 series in a row, so that needs to be their goal.
It's an afternoon game today, 3 o'clock, so
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a mid-afternoon game, not an early afternoon, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen.
One more piece of news. If
Yep.
you saw the news with the Lightning, they've announced that they are moving where their television broadcasts are. It's now over the air on the Spot channel 66.
What does that
Scripps
mean?
Broadcasting. So it's an over the air. You could put an antenna up and channel 66, get the games, but it's Ion Television right now is the name of the network. It's on Spectrum. It's on YouTube TV. It's going to be rebranded in July to the Spot Tampa Bay 66. Whatever.
So what is the advantage to this versus, say,
You don't have to pay a subscription to FanDuel. If you have Spectrum, you have FanDuel Sports Network. If you have something like YouTube TV.
I do have it, yes.
Yeah, if you have YouTube TV or something like that, you don't.
So they'll actually be able to serve more fans this way because it's on air.
It's broadcast television. Free over-the-air broadcast television.
Back in the day, like we used to have with the you put the rabbit ears on the TV and get this thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, Utah is doing it through Scripps, as is the Panthers, and there's a couple others.
That's cool.
So it should make Lightning games available to more people. Also be streamed in the Lightning app as well. So it's really big news.
Yeah, that's cool.
And all the same broadcast team, Dave Randorf, Brian Engelbaum, Gabby Shirley, all back with it. So.
Everybody's back. Okay.
Yep. Just moving where they're broadcast.
All right. Well, as long as it doesn't affect me and I can watch their games, that's really all that matters. I'm happy.
You'll be able to watch their games.
Yeah. That's good.
And more people should be able to.
And more should, like my mom or my sister. Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sometime this morning, go on TampaBay.com and in the Tampa Bay Times and look for some breaking news.
What?
Yeah, that's what we do. We are a newspaper.
Do you have a source? Do you have a friend of a source or a source of a friend?
I got a good source. I went to the source, right to the source, of course. And there's a story that involves your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's all I'm going to say about it. It's a development. It's some news.
Tom Brady's unretiring?
And enjoy. No, thank God.
Okay.
I'm not ready for that just yet.
Just checking.
Yeah. Although that would be quite a story. Certainly was the other two times. But no. This is one I think people enjoy, and I think I'll just say it's a little overdue. Let's leave it there. So anyway, little teaser there for you. If you get up early, go on TampaBay.com, Tampa Bay Times, and also listen to us discuss all of this. Myself, Neil Ardman. If you have a chance to tune into ESPN Tampa Bay, 11:50 a.m., that would be cool too. At around 9:00 Monday through Friday. So we'll be doing all that. But get on down to Breitling Boutique. Check out all the Swiss watches they have down there. The NFL 104th year anniversary. All 32 teams are represented in these Chronomat watches while supplies last. They have men's watches, women's watches as well, sports watches for her with all the different colored wristbands. She's going to love them as well as you. So it's Breitling Boutique, International Plaza Mall. Make sure you let them know that you heard about it on Sports Day Tampa Bay. For Steve Versnick, I'm Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. Have a great day, everybody.